The second year of training passed quickly after the visit to the memorial. Tests, certification exams and physicals all washed together into a wholly uncomfortable few months. But the wait was worth it, because they would be moving on to life drills soon. And for the pilots, that meant being assigned their first interceptor. The day came soon, and all the interceptor pilots and weapons officers were lined up in the main hangar. 100 cadets stood in double rows, pilots and WSO, crammed into the hangar bay, standing at attention. In front of them were the complicated refueling racks holding 50-odd off black painted interceptors, ready for pilots. It began slowly, instructors coming in and calling out names and ordering them to specific interceptors, which lifted off and left the hangar, moving into the cold void of space. All too soon and far too late, it was Milk and Cookie's turn. "Training Interceptor 773, the instructor ordered, ignoring the incredulous look between the pair. "Get up and into the void. We'll be continuing the lessons after that." The pair approached the sleek machine reverently and hesitantly. It's been the first time they truly would fly since almost 8 years now. Milk felt her breath catch as her hand touched the alien yet universal boarding ladder and haul herself in. The flight suit she wore almost claustrophobic as the void seal hissed, and she felt the inner suit sealed tight against her skin. Her breath caught in her throat for a second, as it felt like the suit would crush her lungs. And then it relaxed. She could breathe. She saw as Cookie lowered himself into the pilot's seat and the clear cockpit closed. And then the metal protective coverings began to close over that canopy. They knew it was coming. They've sat in this dark, confined room for hours before, but knowing that your side would vanish and you couldn't do anything about it never got easier as the light was sealed away behind protective metal. And then the cameras turned on. 360-degree view, perfect clarity, and the interceptor hanging in the air in a hangar devoid of gravity. She heard Cookie give a slight gasp as he touched the controls, and the interceptor gave a jolt. She could hear more than see the grin that split his face when he reported, "Cadets Kennedy and McDermott, requesting permission to exit the hangar." "Permission granted. You have the call sign runoff free. Get into the void and take your trainer for its paces. Instructors will be along shortly." Milk had to send the affirmative reply as Cookie brought the interceptor around and took it out into space. "I wanted to fly shuttles, you know," he told her. "Once this was all done, I'd go to NASA and see if they needed pilots. And then the shill took over the space industry. And now here I am." There was wonder in his voice, the slight tinge of awe as the hyper-advanced spaceship moved out into the cold, dark vacuum of space. "Well, instead of shuttles, you're flying a TIE fighter," Milk replied. Cookie laughed. "Come on, don't diss this beauty. It's at least an X-Wing." "X-Wings didn't fly for the Empire," Milk reminded him, while filling his heart with navigation instructions. The instructors had designated a 1 light millisecond diameter sphere as the bounds of the training area. Collisions and fuck-ups weren't expected of cadets. They'd done hundreds of simulator flights before, but it was only smart to keep them in a relatively small area of space in case they needed to be pulled out of the vacuum. "True, true," Cookie responded, as he began to take the interceptor through the standard drills. Hard stops, rapid accelerations, turns, jukes and dives, as every other cadet did the same. They had plenty of space to move, so nobody was crashing into each other, but it was still almost beautiful seeing the shimmering glow of the interceptors and the strange emissions their hybrid engines gave off. They'd flown this craft before, but always in training modules inside the station, never out and free. And even the training modules couldn't perfectly match how the interceptor felt when it moved. The slight grind in the throttle, the way the buttons on the WSO console reacted when pressed with intent, the faint electrical hum of the engine deep in the heart of the craft, or the way residual static caused their hair to stick itself to the insides of their helmets. It was the small things that made them realize, deep in their core, they were flying again. It was like their first carrier launch, the roaring engines, the insane acceleration, and then the jolt when the deck fell from under their wheels. As the pair soared through the empty void, lit by foreign stars, they didn't even bother hiding the smiles. But all fun has to end, and a message came in from the instructors. "Alcon, this is Drill Matron Senwin. I will be running the current exercise. As you may have noticed, you have training weapons and simunitions on your racks. When hit with them, they will give you damage readouts and your training vehicles will simulate the hits. and if fatal damage occurs, your vessel will be put into autopilot for 5 minutes. After that is done, you will gain control back and be considered redeployed. A scoreboard that seemed like it was pulled from one of the most recent Shulvanti competitive games appeared on the bottom left of Milk's HUD. Familiarize yourself with these weapons. Whoever's flight has the highest score gets double servings of dessert for the rest of the week. And then the system bled a missile log. Cookie was starting to think that Runoff Wing was getting picked on. Every time he'd take a turn or ask Milk for a readout of who's alive, Runoff was consistently knocked out or being chased by multiple people from different wings. "2 6 and 3, missile jink!" Milk shouted, as Cookie instinctively jerked the control, sending the interceptor into a strange rising spiral that caused both pilots to be slammed into their crash harnesses, but caused the simulated missiles to fly by and lose tracking. "We need to change the momentum," Cookie shouts back. "Right now we're too busy dodging to actually get any licks in. Doesn't help they're getting up on us." The Scree displaying their respective kills remained at a flat 1 from when a bit of blind fire clipped something vital in an interceptor a mile away. Milk goes silent for a bit before returning, as Cookie pulls off an emergency stop that caused one of the interceptors to lose his target lock on him. "Right, I've got an idea. These things are tools for ECM and EWAR. Cookie, you're on the slate as the music, right?" "Aye. Don't know why you..." He freezes as a grin splits his cheeks. "Do it." "Noble 2 to Brave 4. Stop falling for Runoff 3's high-G maneuvers." "I know, it's unfair that some dirty colonial can pull that off without even a custom G-suit." "Brave 4, we both know you're just angry because Runoff 3's WSO hit you with a chair. Doesn't make it any less valid, Noble 2. "Noble 2? Noble 2, please respond." Static screeched across the radio along with an odd siren sound, and then a loud female voice with a strange, almost musical accent. "This is Runoff 3 to Olacon. Get fucked." And then music began to blare at an uncountable level through the headsets, causing the pilot of Noble 2 to flinch. And then she realized her mistake. Interceptors are built to handle glare easily. A combination of adaptive cameras and flash polarizing lenses ensure even a nuclear detonation gives the same flash as turning on the lights. But even then, there's a split second where you blink. Noble 2 watched as Runoff 3 dipped into the glare of the system's sun, and vanished as the loud music and light made the pilot flinch. For half a second, she had no eyes on the enemy interceptor. Milk swallowed bile, as Cookie slammed the interceptor into a dead stop and a 180-degree spin, giving her clear sight on the pair of pilots chasing them. "Looked up and firing," she replied, with a malicious grin, as a pair of simulated holographic air-to-air missiles flew out from under the spacecraft's wings, smacking the two out of the sky. "Looks like Noble 2 and Brave 4 are down. Let's swing the momentum back in our direction," she called forward. "On a flight. This is Runoff 3 pinging current location. I'm free to engage. Give me targets and form up." "This is Runoff 2. I've got someone on my tail and can't shake them, at your 3 and 9. Milk called back. "I see you. Cookie, port and down. Go for strafe?" "Confirm," Cookie replied, slamming the interceptor back to speed and taking a dive towards the plane, chasing one of their wingmates. "I swear I've seen these positions in a textbook with the caption, 'Ideal interception positions'," Milk snarked, while getting the main gun lined up with the enemy interceptor. Lasers have an incredibly fast travel time and even at extreme ranges, don't need much leading. The main gun on a Shulvanti interceptor is set on a gimbal so the WSO can make sure anyone within what is called the death cone gets a laser shoved up his ass. "Keep it clean, Milk. We got work to do," Cookie replied, thumbing the trigger and trusting his WSO to keep the main gun on target. A faith rewarded when the system registered hits and a kill. "Runoff 3 to Runoff 2. We've got it off your tail. Form up on us and let's go help Runoff 1. We've got them on radar." "Much appreciated, Runoff 3. We're on your port." "Alright. Let's try not to end up at the bottom of the pile." The good news, they didn't end up at the bottom of the scoreboard. The bad news was that they ended up pretty much in a worse position because the only flight below them were known far and wide as the Slackers, who were only good for reciting protocol from memory and running out the small blobs of influence the noble people seemed to gather around them. That was something Milk had noticed early on. A good half of their class was made up of nobility or nobility descent or nobility adjacent members of the Imperium. They were being groomed for officership instead of joining up as rank enlisted, but you'd expect the Glory Chasers to join the full Navy instead of the, as she was taunted a good year or so ago, puddle pirates. God, it's been a year since she was under the light of her sun. She brought both these things up during the weekly mental health check required by patrol regulations. Apparently they had a problem a while ago of people going insane in the cold dark of space and shooting their allies. It's also why the interceptors were, as a matter of doctrine, two-seaters. Pilot and WSO kept each other sane. The doctor had essentially shrugged at her question regarding the nobility, and mentioned that patrol was a significantly safer bet for someone itching to earn some glory, and captaincy in the patrol didn't require the recommendation of a non-related noble or captain. Easier to rise through the ranks and earn the generous pension given to full officers. However, that fact was far from her mind when a voice that can only be described as slimy spoke up from behind her. I see the vaulted human military prowess is deeply exaggerated. No wonder we conquered your world so easily. The Shovanti standing behind the Irish lady and her Kentucky pilot was short for a pup, lanky in all the wrong places with a bit of plump that never seemed to go away. Cookie put a hand on Milk's shoulder, seeing her clench her fists. I mean, you barely beat the sleepers in your rankings. Ignoring two of those sleepers were standing behind her, nodding along. I know you're supposed to be ex-pilots, but if everyone flew like you, it's no wonder we took out your puny air force without much effort. The pair froze. I mean, what? Did you honestly expect kinetics and plastic explosives to do anything against the finest of the Shovanti military? And that was it. The point where Milk faded away and Mad McDermott took its place. Cookie gave her an approving pat on the shoulder, as the pair turned to face the snivelling noble. Milk did something she'd wanted to do since she saw the towering aliens with their stupid tusks. She reached up, grabbed, and pulled down, until the pair were eye to eye at Ivine's 5'5" height. The noble's black eyes were wide open, as Milk's emerald green stared back with pure rage. Her voice never raised from a low growl as she spoke. The Shovanti Imperial War Manual, which we both have read, informs commanders, officers, and soldiers that against a tech partially similar to that between Earth and your invasion of it, a casualty ratio of 30 enemy losses to 1 Shovanti casualty is considered acceptable. My flight had 20 planes, we were bounced by a Shovanti gunship. The ratio I counted flying away was 19 to 1. She shoved and forced their fellow cadet onto her ass as the drill instructors rushed over to break up the fight. Remember that next time you run your mouth, bitch. I really shouldn't have said that.